The lights in the broken hyperdrive cantina flickered like always. Sarah Chun wiped down another table with her worn cleaning cloth. The smell of alien spices mixed with engine oil filled the air. This was home now, even if it wasn't much to look at. Nexus Station stretched out in all directions around her. Thousands of beings from dozens of worlds lived and worked here. Ships came and went every hour. Traders, diplomats, workers, and wanderers all passed through the lower levels where Sarah spent her days. She looked at the clock on the wall. 3 more hours until her shift ended. Then she could go back to her small apartment and study for her xenobiology exam. Learning about alien life forms was her dream. Working as a waitress was just how she paid for school. The cantina door slid open with a soft hiss. Sarah looked up from her cleaning. A family of blue-skinned Andorians walked in. They spoke in quiet voices and chose a corner table. Sarah grabbed her order pad and walked over to greet them. "Welcome to the broken hyperdrive," she said with a smile. "What can I get you today?" The father ordered food for his family in broken standard. Sarah nodded and wrote everything down. She had learned to understand most of the common languages used on the station. It made her job easier and helped her studies too. As she walked to the kitchen to place the order, Sarah thought about her mother. Elena Chun worked in the station's maintenance department. She fixed pipes and cleaned air filters in the lower levels. It was hard work, but it paid the bills. Her mother was quiet about her past. Sarah knew Elena had come to the station about 20 years ago. She never talked about what happened before that. Sometimes Sarah found her mother looking at old photos, but Elena always put them away quickly when Sarah came near. The kitchen door slid open and Chief Gomez handed Sarah the Andorian family's food. She carried the plates back to their table and served them with another smile. The father thanked her in his broken standard, and Sarah felt good about helping them. The cantina was having a slow day. Only a few tables had customers. Sarah used the quiet time to study her datapad. She was reading about Drakmori biology when the front door opened again. This time, the cantina went very quiet. 3 massive figures filled the doorway. They had to duck their heads to walk inside. Their skin looked like dark green leather, and their eyes glowed yellow in the dim light. Long tails moved behind them as they walked. These were Drakmori, and they were huge. Sarah had seen pictures of Drakmori in her textbooks, but never in person. They stood almost 3 meters tall. Thick muscles moved under their scaled skin. Sharp teeth showed when they breathed. But what caught Sarah's attention most were the marks on their skin. Glowing lines and patterns covered their arms and chests. The marks pulsed with different colors: blue, red, white, and gold. Sarah remembered from her studies that these were battle scars. Each mark told a story of a fight the Drakmori had survived. The other customers in the cantina started to look nervous. The Andorian family finished their food quickly and left. 2 human traders at another table paid their bill and hurried out. Soon, only the 3 Drakmori remained. They chose a large table in the center of the room. Their chairs groaned under their weight. Sarah took a deep breath and walked over to them with her order pad. "Good evening," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Welcome to the broken hyperdrive." The largest of the 3 Drakmori looked at her. His yellow eyes studied her face. A red mark shaped like a claw glowed on his chest. More scars covered his arms and neck. When he spoke, his voice was deep and rough. "Fire wine," he said in accented standard. 3 bottles. Strong ones. Sarah wrote it down. "Any food with that?" "No food. Only wine." The Drakmori's tail moved behind his chair. "You understand Drakmori drink, human?" "Yes, sir. We have Vulcan fire wine and thermal fire wine. The thermal is stronger." The Drakmori showed his teeth in what might have been a smile. "Thermal. Good." Sarah walked to the bar and told the bartender what they wanted. He looked nervous too, but he got the bottles ready. Fire wine was expensive and very strong. Most species couldn't drink it at all. When Sarah brought the bottles back, the three Drachmori were talking in their own language. It sounded like growling mixed with clicking sounds. She set the bottles on their table and opened them carefully. The wine inside glowed red and gave off heat. "Thank you, human," the largest one said. Then he looked at her more carefully. "You are not afraid?" Sarah met his gaze. "Should I be?" This time, all three Drachmori showed their teeth. The sound they made might have been laughter. "Most soft skins run when they see us," said the one on the left. His scars were mostly blue and white. "You are different." "I'm working," Sarah said simply. "You're customers." The Drachmori in the middle, who had gold marks on his arms, poured wine for all three of them. The cups steamed in the cool air of the cantina. "What is your name, human?" asked the largest one, Sarah-chan. "I am Commander Lexfer. These are Sub-Commander Krill and Warrior Dextar." He pointed to his companions. "We are veterans of the Hegemony Wars." Sarah nodded. She had read about those wars in her history classes. They happened about 30 years ago. Many species had fought against an enemy called the Hegemony. It was before she was born. "Is there anything else you need?" Sarah asked. "We will call you," Commander Dexfer said. He raised his cup to his lips and drank. The other two did the same. Sarah walked back to the bar. The cantina felt different now with the three warriors inside. Their presence was heavy, like the air before a storm. She could hear them talking in their growling language. Sometimes they would laugh, and the sound echoed off the walls. She tried to go back to studying, but found it hard to focus. The Drachmori were not doing anything wrong. They sat at their table and drank their wine, but something about them made her nervous. Maybe it was the stories she had heard about Drachmori warriors. They were known throughout the galaxy as fierce fighters. Their claws could cut through metal. Their strength was legendary. In the wars, they had fought battles that other species couldn't survive. Sarah looked at the clock again. 2 hours left in her shift. She hoped the Drachmori would finish their drinks and leave soon. But something told her this evening was going to be different from all the others. The fire wine worked quickly on the three Drachmori. After finishing their first bottles, they ordered 3 more. Their voices got louder, and their yellow eyes glowed brighter in the cantina's dim light. Sarah tried to focus on her studies, but their conversation kept pulling her attention. They spoke mostly in their own language, but sometimes switched to standard when they wanted to make a point. "Remember the siege at Korath Prime?" Commander Dexvar's voice carried across the room. 14 days without reinforcements. Sub-Commander Krill nodded and took another drink. "The Hegemony threw everything they had at us. We held the line with honor." Warrior Dextar's gold scars pulsed brighter. Many soft species ran that day. They called it tactical withdrawal. He made a sound that might have been laughter, but it came out like a growl. Sarah looked up from her datapad. The way they said soft species didn't sound friendly. She had heard that Drachmori divided the galaxy into 2 groups, those who could fight and those who were weak. It seemed like most species fell into the second group. The 3 warriors continued sharing stories. Each tale was about a battle where they had fought against impossible odds. They talked about planets Sarah had only read about in history books. Places where thousands had died fighting the Hegemony. "Pour another round," Commander Dexver said to his companions. "Tonight we remember the fallen." As the evening went on, more customers came and left quickly. A group of Tellarite merchants took one look at the Drachmori and chose a different cantina. 2 human engineers sat down at a table, then changed their minds when they heard the warriors laughing. Sarah started to feel uncomfortable. The cantina was almost empty now. Only she, the bartender, and the three Drakmori remained. Their stories were getting louder and more detailed. Some of the things they described made her stomach feel sick. The problem with modern times, Sub-Commander Krill said, switching to standard, is that too many species think they are warriors when they have never faced real battle. Commander Thexfer agreed. They sit in their comfortable ships and call themselves soldiers. They have never felt enemy claws trying to tear out their throats. Warrior Dexstar laughed. They have never watched their brothers die and still kept fighting. They know nothing of true courage. Sarah cleaned the same table 3 times while listening. She knew they were talking about the wars, but their words felt personal somehow, like they were judging everyone who hadn't fought beside them. Do you remember the Centauri delegation? Sub-Commander Krill asked his companions. They claimed their pilots were the best in the galaxy. Then they saw our first real battle and begged to be sent home. The Vulcans were almost as bad, Warrior Dexstar added. All their logic couldn't help them when the shooting started. They calculated their way right out of the fight. Commander Dexfer's red claw mark glowed brighter. At least they admitted their fear. Some species still pretend they were heroes. Sarah's hands tightened on her cleaning cloth. These warriors had fought in battles she could barely imagine. They had earned their scars and their pride. But listening to them dismiss entire civilizations made her feel angry. The bartender, an older human named Marcus, walked over to Sarah. "Maybe you should take your break now," he whispered. "Let them finish their drinks in peace." Sarah nodded, but she didn't move toward the back room. Something kept her listening to the Drakmori conversation. Maybe it was curiosity about the wars. Maybe it was the way they talked about other species, like they were children. The worst ones were those who ran away completely, Sub-Commander Krill continued. They found excuses to leave when the real fighting began. Logistics problems or communication failures. We all knew the truth. Which species was that again? Warrior Dexstar asked. There were so many. Commander Dexford took a long drink before answering. Several. The Packled claimed they didn't understand the mission. The Benzides said their breathing equipment couldn't handle the environment. Weak excuses from weak species. Sarah felt her face getting warm. She had studied the Hegemony Wars in school. The teacher had talked about how different species contributed in different ways. Some fought on the front lines, others provided supplies or intelligence. Everyone had played a part. But listening to these warriors, it sounded like only the Drakmari had really fought at all. Everyone else was either a coward or a fool. The humans were particularly disappointing, Sub-Commander Krill said suddenly. Sarah froze. The cleaning cloth stopped moving in her hands. Humans? Warrior Dexstar asked. They were barely part of the war. New species just joined the galactic community. Commander Thexfer nodded. Exactly. They talked about their military history on their homeworld. Claimed they knew about warfare. But when they saw real combat between starships and energy weapons, most of them found reasons to stay away. I heard some of them were at Kepler's Gate, Warrior Dexstar said. A few, Sub-Commander Krill replied. They left when things got serious. Probably for the best. They would have just gotten in our way. Sarah's face felt hot now. Her mother had never talked about the wars, but Sarah knew Elena had been in the military before coming to Nexus Station. She had seen old photos of her mother in uniform, though Elena always put them away quickly. Humans think they are tough because they fight each other on their little world, Commander Dexfer said. But that is like children playing with toys. Real warfare is different. Real enemies want to destroy your entire species. The three warriors laughed together. The sound echoed through the empty cantina like thunder. Sarah looked at the clock. 1 hour left in her shift. She wanted to walk away, to go to the back room and wait for them to leave. But her feet wouldn't move. Their words about humans kept spinning in her mind. They probably tell stories about their brave service now, Sub-Commander Krill said. Safe at home, they can pretend they were heroes. The young ones probably believe it too, Warrior Dextar added. They have no idea their elders ran away when the galaxy needed them. Sarah's hands were shaking now. She gripped the cleaning cloth tighter and tried to stay calm. These warriors had fought in battles she couldn't imagine. They had earned the right to their opinions, but something inside her was getting angry. Very angry. Commander Dexfer raised his cup. To real warriors, he said loudly. To those who stayed and fought when others ran away. To real warriors, his companions repeated. They drank, and their laughter filled the cantina again. Sarah stood in the middle of the empty room, holding her cleaning cloth, listening to them mock her entire species, and something deep inside her started to burn. The third round of firewine made the Drakmori even louder. Their stories became more detailed and more brutal. They described battles in ways that made Sarah's stomach turn. But worse than the violence was how they talked about everyone else. Remember the Betazoid Colonel? Sub-Commander Krill asked his companions. His blue and white scars were glowing brighter now. He could read minds, but couldn't read a battle map. Telepathy is useless when plasma bolts are flying. Warrior Dextar's gold marks pulsed with each laugh. He spent the whole battle telling us what the enemy was thinking. They are afraid, he kept saying. We told him, so are we, but we fight anyway. Commander Dexfer showed all his teeth. Fear is honest. Running away is not. Sarah tried to go back to studying, but the words on her datapad blurred together. Her mother's face kept appearing in her mind. Elena Chun, who worked quietly in the maintenance tunnels. Elena, who never talked about her past. Elena, who sometimes looked at old photos with sad eyes. The Regilians were almost funny, Sub-Commander Krill continued. They brought their entire philosophy department to explain why violence was wrong. Then they explained why they couldn't help fight the most violent enemy the galaxy had ever seen. Philosophy doesn't stop plasma cannons. Warrior Dextar agreed. The three warriors found this hilarious. Their laughter boomed through the cantina like thunder during a storm. Sarah looked around the room. She was alone with them now. Even Marcus, the bartender, had gone to the back room to clean glasses. The empty tables and chairs seemed to watch her like silent witnesses. You know what species made me laugh the most? Commander, Dexfer asked. His red claw mark was glowing so bright it cast shadows on the wall. Tell us, his companions said together. Humans. Commander Dexfer took another long drink. Such a young species, so eager to prove themselves. They joined the galactic community right before the war started. Perfect timing. What did they do? Sub-Commander Krill asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. They talked so much about their military history. Wars on their homeworld that lasted years. They claimed they understood sacrifice and courage. But when they saw what real space warfare looked like, most of them remembered urgent business back home. Sarah's hands clenched into fists. The cleaning cloth tore under her grip. I heard some human general gave a speech about protecting democracy. Warrior Dextar said with a growl that might have been laughter. Very dramatic. Very inspiring. Then his ships disappeared when the hegemony showed up. They probably went home to hide behind their mothers. Sub-Commander Krill said. This brought roars of laughter from all three warriors. They slammed their cups on the table and howled like predators. The sound echoed off the walls and ceiling. Behind their mothers. Commander Dexfer repeated. That's perfect. The brave human warriors running home to Mama when the real fighting started. Their mothers probably told them to be careful and come home safe, Warrior Dextar added. Like sending children to play war games. More laughter. More howling. More mockery. Sarah felt something hot building in her chest. The feeling spread through her arms and legs like fire through dry grass. Her face felt warm, and her heart was beating fast. At least their mothers didn't pretend to be warriors too, Sub-Commander Krill said. Can you imagine? Human females trying to fight in a real war? They would probably cry and ask for help. That was it. That was the moment Sarah's control broke. She walked across the cantina toward their table. Her feet moved without her thinking about it. The torn clean cloth fell from her hands. The three massive warriors were still laughing when she reached them. Excuse me, Sarah said in a voice that surprised her with how steady it sounded. The laughter stopped. Three pairs of yellow eyes turned to look at her. Commander Denzver's head tilted to one side like a confused predator. You need something, human? He asked. Yes, Sarah said. You're talking about my people. Sub-Commander Krill's mouth opened in what might have been surprise. Then he started chuckling. Your people? Little waitress, you were upset about jokes? They weren't jokes, Sarah said. You called us cowards. You said we ran away when the fighting got serious. Warrior Dextar leaned back in his chair, which creaked under his weight. Did we lie? Were humans brave warriors in the hegemony wars? I don't know, Sarah admitted. But you're talking like you were the only ones who fought. Like everyone else was worthless. Commander Dexver studied her face with his glowing yellow eyes. You are angry, human. That is interesting. Most of your species apologize when they are upset. You stand here and challenge us instead. Should I apologize? Sarah asked. For being human? For having feelings? The three warriors exchanged glances. Sub-Commander Krill's scars dimmed slightly. Warrior Dextar stopped laughing completely. You have courage, Commander Dexvar said slowly. Foolish courage, perhaps, but courage. You are one small human facing three Dratmori veterans. Either you are very brave or very stupid. Maybe both, Sarah said. This brought a different kind of laughter from the warriors. Quieter, more thoughtful. Your people were not at the major battles, Commander Dexver continued. This is fact, not insult. Humans were new to space warfare, new to the technology we used. It made sense for them to stay away from the hardest fighting. But that doesn't make us cowards, Sarah said. No? Sub-Commander Krill leaned forward. Then tell me, young human, where were your people when the hegemony attacked Kepler's Gate? Where were they during the siege of Karth Prime? Where were they when real warriors bled and died? Sarah opened her mouth to answer, then stopped. She didn't know the details of those battles. Her history classes had only covered the basic facts about the war. She knew the major events and outcomes, but not who had fought where. I don't know, she admitted. Exactly, Warrior Dextar said. You don't know because they weren't there. They found reasons to be somewhere else when the galaxy needed defenders. Child, Commander Dexver said, and his voice was gentler now. Your people are young. They joined the galactic community when they were not ready for real warfare. This is not shameful. But do not pretend they were heroes when they chose safety over sacrifice. Sarah felt tears starting in her eyes, but she blinked them back. You don't know everything, she said quietly. We know enough, Sub-Commander Krill replied. We were there. We fought beside those who stayed. We remember who stood with us and who did not. Your species has potential, Commander Dexver added. You prove that now, standing here when you could have walked away. But potential is not the same as proven courage. Sarah looked at the three massive warriors. Their scars told stories of battles she couldn't imagine. Their eyes held memories of friends who had died fighting an enemy she had only read about in textbooks, but something inside her still burned. Something that told her they were wrong. Not about everything, maybe, but about something important. You're right, she said slowly. I don't know the details of those battles. I wasn't there, but I know my family. She looked directly at Commander Dexvo's chest, where the red claw mark glowed like a beacon in the dim light of the cantina. Her voice became very quiet, very steady. My mom has your mark. The cantina became so quiet that Sarah could hear the station's air recyclers humming in the walls. The three Drakmori warriors sat frozen at their table like statues carved from stone. Their glowing scars dimmed until they were barely visible in the cantina's light. Commander Dexver's yellow eyes fixed on Sarah's face. His massive hand, which had been holding a cup of fire wine, slowly set it down on the table. The cup made no sound when it touched the surface. What did you say? His voice was barely above a whisper. My mom has your mark, Sarah repeated. Her heart was beating so fast she could feel it in her throat. The red one. On your chest. Sub-Commander Krill and Warrior Dexstar both turned to stare at their commander. The red claw mark on Dexver's chest pulsed once, bright enough to cast shadows on the wall behind him. That is impossible, Warrior Dexstar said quietly. The Crimson Talon was not just a battle scar. Sarah had read about it in her xenobiology studies. It was the highest honor the Drakmari could give to another warrior. Only those who fought beside them in the most desperate battles could earn it. Only those who proved themselves worthy of Drakmari respect. Human, Commander Dexver said slowly. The Crimson Talon has been given to only 17 non-Drakmari in our entire history. Only 5 of those recipients survived the wars. Sarah's throat felt dry. What's my mother's name? Elena Chan, Sarah answered immediately. Elena Rodriguez before she married my father. The change in the 3 warriors was instant and dramatic. Sub-Commander Krill's mouth fell open. Warrior Dexstar leaned forward so suddenly his chair creaked. Commander Dexver's eyes widened until Sarah could see white around the yellow. Rodriguez, Commander Dexver whispered. Then louder. Elena Rodriguez, human, sergeant in the Ghost Battalion. He reached for a device on his wrist and began pressing controls with fingers that shook slightly. A small holographic screen appeared above the device. Text scrolled past in Drakmori symbols that meant nothing to Sarah. What is the Ghost Battalion? Sarah asked. Special Operations, Sub-Commander Krill answered without taking his eyes off the screen. Humans who volunteered for the most dangerous missions. Most species thought they were suicide squads. Most species were right. Warrior Dexstar added quietly. Commander Dexver continued scrolling through the information on his screen. His scars began to glow brighter as he read. When he found what he was looking for, he stopped breathing. The Siege of Kepler's Gate, he said in a voice full of wonder. Day 16. Sector 7 breach. Human Ghost Battalion, 13th Company. The holographic screen turned towards Sarah. She saw a photo that made her heart stop. Her mother, 20 years younger, wearing military armor and holding a weapon Sarah didn't recognize. Elena's face was dirty and tired, but her eyes were fierce. Sergeant Elena Rodriguez. Commander Dexver read from the file. Ghost Battalion. Volunteered for rear guard action during Sector 7 evacuation. Held position for 18 hours against overwhelming enemy forces. 18 hours, Sub-Commander Krill repeated softly. With 13 other humans and... Commander Dexver paused, his eyes moving across the screen. And 12 Drakmori warriors from the Crimson Fang unit. Warrior Dextar's gold scars blazed bright enough to light up half the cantina. Crimson Fang was your unit, Commander. I know. Dexver whispered. Sarah felt dizzy. She grabbed the back of an empty chair to steady herself. My mother fought beside you? Commander Dexver looked up from his device. His yellow eyes held something Sarah had never seen in them before. Respect. Deep, honest respect. "Your mother saved my life," he said quietly. The holographic screen showed more information. Battle reports, casualty lists, and something called a citation for extraordinary valor. Commander Dexvar began to read it. Aloud, Sergeant Rodriguez displayed exceptional courage during the enemy breakthrough in Sector 7, when Drakmori positions came under heavy fire. She led her squad to reinforce their lines. Despite being outnumbered 5-1, the combined force held their position for 18 hours. "What happened?" Sarah asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know. "The hegemony sent everything they had at us," Commander Dexver continued. "We were the last line of defense between them and the civilian evacuation ships. If we broke, thousands of refugees would die." He touched his chest where the red claw mark glowed. "I was wounded in the first hour. Plasma bolt took out my left shoulder. Your mother dragged me to cover while enemy fire rained around us. She fought with our weapons when her ammunition ran out," Sub-Commander Krill added, reading over his commander's shoulder. "Human physiology should not have been able to handle Drakmori energy rifles, but she made them work. The citation says she killed 47 enemy soldiers," Warrior Dextar said with something like awe in his voice. Commander Dexver nodded slowly. "When reinforcements finally arrived, only 8 of us were still alive. 3 Drakmori, 5 humans. Your mother was holding the center position by herself. The ground around her was covered with enemy bodies." Sarah's legs felt weak. She sat down in the chair she had been gripping. This couldn't be her mother. Elena Chan fixed air filters and cleaned maintenance tunnels. She was quiet and gentle and never hurt anyone. "After the battle, we performed the ritual of blood brothers," Commander Dexver continued. "It is our highest honor. We share our life energy with those who have earned the right to call themselves Drakmori. Your mother received the Crimson Talon that day. She was the first human to ever receive it," Sub-Commander Krill added. "And the youngest recipient in our history," Warrior Dextar said. "She was 24 years old." The holographic screen showed more photos. Elena in a Drakmori ceremony, surrounded by warriors twice her size. Elena receiving a glowing red mark that was somehow transferred to her skin. Elena standing proudly beside creatures that could tear her apart with their bare claws. "What happened to the other humans in her unit?" Sarah asked. Commander Dexver's expression became sad. "Only 2 others survived the war. The Ghost Battalion took casualties that would have broken most units, but they never stopped volunteering for the worst missions." "Where is she now?" Sub-Commander Krill asked suddenly. "Is Elena Rodriguez still alive?" "She lives here on the station," Sarah said. "She works in maintenance. She never told me about any of this." The 3 warriors looked at each other. Something passed between them without words. "Many veterans do not speak of the war," Commander Dexver said gently. "The memories are too painful. Your mother saw things that no being should have to see. She did things that heroes do," Warrior Dextar added, "while the rest of her species stayed home." Sub-Commander Krill finished. Sarah felt angry again, but differently than before. "Don't say that. If my mother could be brave, so could others." "You are right," Commander Dexver said immediately. "I spoke from ignorance and prejudice. If Elena Rodriguez represents what humans can be, then we have judged your species unfairly." He stood up slowly, his massive frame unfolding like a mountain rising from the ground. Sub-Commander Krill and Warrior Dextar stood with him. "We owe your mother a debt that can never be repaid," Commander Dexver said formally. "And we owe you an apology for our words tonight." "We did not know," Warrior Dextar added. "But ignorance is not an excuse." Sub-Commander Krill finished. Sarah looked up at the 3 towering warriors. Their scars glowed with what she now understood was emotion. Shame, respect, and something that might have been hope. She never told me, Sarah said again, more to herself than to them. Then it is time she did, Commander Dexfer replied. Commander, Dexfer moved with sudden purpose. He reached into a pouch on his belt and pulled out a small device. The other two warriors watched as he pressed several controls. A soft chiming sound filled the cantina. What are you doing? Sarah asked. Calling the others, he replied. Every Drakmori veteran on this station needs to know that Elena Rodriguez is here. How many others are there? 12, Sub-Commander Krill answered. We gather here once each year to remember the fallen. This year, we have a greater purpose. Within minutes, the cantina door began opening and closing as more Drakmori arrived. Each one was as massive as the first three, covered in glowing battle scars. They filled the small space until Sarah felt surrounded by living monuments to war. The newcomers spoke in rapid Drakmori when they saw Sarah. Commander Dexver explained the situation in their language. Sarah watched as expressions changed from confusion to shock to something like reverence. We wish to perform the recognition of honor, Commander Dexver told. Sarah, it is a ceremony for warriors who have earned our deepest respect. But we need Elena Rodriguez to be present. I can call her, Sarah said, pulling out her communication device. No, said an elderly Drakmori with silver scars covering his arms. This must be done properly. We will escort you home and formally request her presence. Sarah looked around at the 15 massive warriors filling the cantina. All of you? All of us, Commander Dexfer confirmed. Elena Rodriguez deserves nothing less. The journey through Nexus Station's lower levels became something like a parade. People stopped to stare as 15 Drakmori warriors moved through the corridors with a small human waitress at their center. Word spread quickly through the maintenance sections where Elena worked. Sarah's apartment was in the lowest level of the residential district. The corridors here were narrow and poorly lit, designed for workers rather than visitors. But the Drakmori moved through them with respectful silence. When they reached Sarah's door, Commander Dexfer gestured for the others to wait in the corridor. Only he and Sarah approached the entrance. Mom? Sarah called as the door slid open. Are you home? Elena Chen appeared from the kitchen, wearing her maintenance uniform. She was a small woman, barely reaching Sarah's shoulder. Her dark hair showed streaks of gray, and her hands bore the calluses of years of manual work. She stopped moving when she saw Commander Dexfer. For a long moment, the two veterans studied each other across the small apartment. Elena's eyes moved to the red claw mark on the Drakmori's chest. Her expression didn't change, but Sarah saw her shoulders straighten slightly. Hello, Dexfer, Elena said quietly. Elena Rodriguez, the commander replied with deep respect. It has been many years. Sarah looked back and forth between them. You remember each other? Your mother pulled me from a burning transport, Commander Dexfer said. Such things are not easily forgotten. Elena walked forward slowly. When she reached the commander, she looked up at him with tired eyes. How many of the others are still alive? 6 from our unit. 12 total from the siege. Elena nodded. And the humans? We have lost touch with most of them, Commander Dexfer admitted. You are the first we have found since the war ended. The first you have looked for, you mean? Elena said with a small smile. The commander's scars dimmed with what might have been embarrassment. Yes, we did not understand how to find scattered humans. Your people do not gather like ours do. Mom, Sarah said suddenly. Why didn't you tell me? Elena turned to her daughter. Her face showed the weight of years and memories. What would I have said? That your mother was a killer? That I spent 2 years fighting battles that gave me nightmares for 20 more? You could have told me you were a hero. Heroes don't exist, Elena said firmly. There are only people who do what needs to be done when the moment comes. Commander Dexver stepped forward. Elena Rodriguez, your daughter has reminded us of truths we have forgotten. We came tonight to perform the recognition of honor. That's not necessary, Elena replied. It is required, the commander said formally. You bear the crimson talon. You have earned the right to stand among us as an equal. Elena was quiet for a moment. Then she walked to a storage chest in the corner of the room. Sarah had seen the chest her entire life, but had never looked inside it. Elena opened it carefully and pulled out a small box. Inside the box, glowing softly in the apartment's dim light, was a metal shaped like a dragon's claw. The crimson talon. Even after 20 years, it pulsed with red energy. I kept it, Elena said simply. I'm not sure why. Because you earned it, Commander Dexver said. And because part of you is still a warrior. The 15 Drakmori warriors performed their ceremony in the apartment's main room. They formed a circle around Elena and began speaking in their ancient language. Their scars glowed brighter and brighter until the entire room was filled with colored light. Sarah watched as her quiet mother stood among the massive aliens with her head held high. The crimson talon in Elena's hands responded to the ceremony, glowing bright enough to cast shadows on the walls. When the ceremony ended, the warriors each approached Elena individually. They spoke words in Drakmori that Sarah couldn't understand, but the emotion behind them was clear. Respect, gratitude, brotherhood. What are they saying? Sarah asked the Commander Dexver. Each warrior is recounting a moment from the siege when your mother saved their life, he explained. It is our way of honoring her sacrifice. As the last warrior finished speaking, Elena wiped tears from her eyes. You honor me too much, she said. Impossible, Commander Dexver replied. You stood with us when others ran. You bled with us when others hid. You are pack sister to every Drakmori warrior who draws breath. The warriors began to leave, each one bowing deeply to Elena before departing. Soon, only Commander Dexver reigned. Your daughter has your courage, he told Elena. She stood alone against 3 drunk veterans and defended her entire species. That sounds like something she would do, Elena said with pride. We spoke poorly of humans tonight, the commander admitted. We let our pride blind us to the truth. Your daughter opened our eyes. When he had gone, Sarah sat with her mother on their small couch. The crimson talon lay between them, still glowing softly. Are you angry that I never told you? Elena asked. No, Sarah said. I understand why you didn't. But I'm proud of you. And I'm proud to be your daughter. Elena smiled. The war was a long time ago. I thought I could leave it behind. But it's part of you, Sarah said. The good parts and the bad parts. It made you who you are. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the metal pulse with red light. Finally, Elena spoke again. The Drakmori have a saying, she said. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is action in spite of fear. Is that what you did? Act in spite of fear? Every day, Elena admitted. I was terrified through most of the war. But my friends were depending on me. And sometimes, when people are depending on you, you find strength you didn't know you had. Sarah thought about her confrontation with the Drakmori veterans earlier that evening. She had been afraid too, but she had stood up for her people anyway. Maybe courage runs in the family, she said. Elena laughed, and for the first time in years, she looked truly happy. Maybe it does. The next day, Sarah went back to work at the broken hyperdrive cantina. The place felt different somehow, smaller and more ordinary. She served customers and studied for her exams and cleaned tables just like always. But when Drakmori visitors came to the cantina, word spread quickly through their community. The small human waitress was pack sister to Elena Rodriguez, bearer of the Crimson Talon. She was treated with the same respect they would show to any veteran warrior. And when other species asked about human courage, the Drakmori told them a story. They spoke of a young woman who stood alone against impossible odds, defending people who could not defend themselves. They spoke of Elena Rodriguez and the Ghost Battalion, who proved that courage has no species boundaries. They spoke of Sarah Chun, who reminded them that heroes can be found in the most ordinary places, doing the most ordinary jobs, until the moment comes when ordinary is no longer enough. And in the lower levels of Nexus Station, in a small apartment filled with the quiet love between a mother and daughter, Elena Chun kept a Crimson Talon on her table where the light could reach it, because some honors, once earned, should never be hidden away.